Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel. For this video, I'm going to harken back to a series that I began a little while ago where we look at the actual history and strategy of each of the countries in the war. For this one, we're going to be looking at France. What was their plan at the outbreak of war? How did they see things going before things really moved in August 1914? Before getting into that, though, I just wanted to mention a couple things. If you are a subscriber to a number of the different Axis and Allies YouTube channels going on right now, you know that Young Grasshopper has his tournament coming up. If you're not a subscriber of his channel is called The Cliffside Bunker. I highly recommend you checking that out. He does a lot of 1940 global videos. So that's coming in the realm of tournaments. We also have Gen Con coming up. It's much like Origins, which we had in June. I do plan on attending that, but have decided that I'm just going to focus on 1914 rather than play in as many Axis and Allies tournaments as I can get my hands on, which I did at Origins in June. I'm also going to be attending with a few other people, and so trying to coordinate schedules, it's going to be a lot more conducive to group activities if I'm not spending 12 hours a day every day playing Axis and Allies. So the group that sets the tournament does use tournament rules, but they when it comes to the double movement, they do allow that you can double move into any territory that is contested. So it does not have to be contested by you. So for example, if Austria contests Venice, Germany can double move down into there. If, let's say, Russia is contesting Sevastopol, just to throw out an example, and England controls Persia, it can move directly from India into Sevastopol. And that's something that I did run into a little bit my first time playing a game with that version of the movement rule. I had expected that things would be tricky for Italy down here, but I hadn't paid as close of attention to notice that that's going to make it more difficult for the Central Powers to take out Russia. So I'm currently working on revising my strategy because that does have an impact. I haven't quite got it where I want it yet, but I feel like I'm close. So I'm going to be trying it for the first time at Gen Con. If it doesn't work well, then back to the drawing board. If it does, then, regardless of whether or not it results in a win, if I feel like it works well, I'll make a video on that when the time comes. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about actual history. So France has an alliance with Russia. I know England is a member of the Allies in this game, and they did have an agreement signed with Germany and France, and I'm not sure who else, respecting the neutrality of Belgium from decades earlier. But they were not necessarily an ally with France in the way that Russia was, that both of them, if one of them went to war with Germany, the other one was definitely going to jump in. But for sure, France is allied with Russia. Italy's a little bit questionable, but it was starting to appear like Italy probably, at least immediately, would not jump in on the side of Austria, because those two countries had their own problems, even though Germany, Austria, and Italy were all technically allied at the time. So France, since the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, 1871, had lost some territory right in here at the Alsace to Germany. They obviously were unhappy about that. They built a number of fortifications across the front here, which are not denoted in this game, but that is something that they were doing. They, for the most part, expected Germany would respect Belgium neutrality because they figured Germany wouldn't want England to get in the war. It was only just before 1914 that France started to rethink that and position some of their troops up here. They did still expect that they'd have advanced warning if Germany invaded Belgium. So if you're thinking Axis and Allies 1914, you might consider it as France figured Germany would contest Belgium rather than take it outright, and then they could move their forces in, and then just keep contesting that at a minimum. Now, the other part of their plan, so remember I said that France is allied with Russia, which means Germany, well, that's a big reason. France figures Germany has to be spread out at least to a degree. They're going to need guys over here to defend against Russia, though the plan was always for Russian troops to attack, to either pin down the Germans so they couldn't move westward, or to overwhelm them and cause that front to fall. Either one of those would have been fine, as far as France was concerned. Also, if Germany is going to invade through Belgium, they're going to need forces up there. And as long as they do get bogged down in Belgium as anticipated, France can send in fewer forces initially, just kind of hold them off, slow them down. And now then the French plan was to concentrate, so Germany has to spread out in a number of locations. France is trying to minimize that. It's going to concentrate as many of its forces as possible here. And they did run through a number of different versions. They were on, I think they just started numbering the plans rather than name them like the Schlieffen plan the Germans had. So this is Plan 17 since I think the Franco-Prussian War. They went through a number of different ones, and there are different variations. But in essence, this is a very offensive, heavy plan that calls for a heavy concentration of French troops here. As soon as war breaks out, pushing into Alsace, overwhelming the Germans, who, while they have more manpower, have to be spread out more. And then that would be 2 main armies, with the idea that depending on what happens in Belgium, you could have some of the forces go up there while the remaining forces continue pushing into Germany. Or if the Germans do seem to be thoroughly bogged down in Belgium, you just have, all of the units, or all of the divisions rather. And again, like the other videos I've made about different strategy, the chips and the pieces don't represent actual units. They're just for illustration purposes. You can see the movement. And so that was France's plan. Fairly straightforward. Get Russia to attack on the Eastern Front. Have some units ready to either move into Belgium or, worst case scenario, hold the Germans off up here. But the idea was to move into Belgium if the Germans do attack there. With the thought that while they might, they probably won't, because that would mean England will get in the war, and surely they wouldn't want that. So the crux is to, have some forces up here to deal with that if necessary, and then have everything else that can be spared here to just push their way in, forcing the Germans back. So I don't feel like there's as much creativity, you might say, as some of the other plans. But then at the same time, if you're Germany, you have to worry about a two-front war. You have to worry about, well, of course France is going to have a bunch of its guys here. How are we going to deal with that? If you're France and you believe Italy is going to be neutral, and you believe Belgium is going to be respected, what are you going to do with your guys? You really only have one area you can put them, and that's right here. So if they're here and you're not going to go to Belgium, where are you going to go? Over to Alsace. So even though that is territory that they happen to lose, and I'm sure there would be some national pride, gained from taking that back, when you look geographically, they don't have as many options, and they don't need as many options as some of the other countries, as Germany, or let's say as Russia, which has this huge front with Germany and Austria for sure, and then as events unfolded, the Ottoman Empire. So there are all sorts of things Russia has to worry about, all sorts of things that they can do and focus on. France only has this small border with a central power, and that's it. So we can't entirely fault them for that. And given that situation, logically, of course, it makes sense to concentrate your forces there and try and push through. So that is a rundown in general of what France was hoping to do, how they saw things transpiring. Of course, Germany pushed through Belgium much faster than expected and then overwhelmed both Belgium and the French defenders up here, and the French attack into Alsace failed. That really didn't gain any traction of note. So we know things did not go quite the way the French thought and hoped that they would, but that's war, and I've heard said that, I hope I don't butcher this quote, no plan ever survived an encounter with the enemy, I think, or something like that. You know, you can plan, you can have the best laid plan, you can be planning for 20 years, or in the case of the French, let's see, 1971, so 30, 40, a little over 40 years, and when the rubber hits the road, maybe things go your way, maybe they don't, you don't know. But that's what they were looking to do. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's been a little while since I've done one of these. I do plan on posting some sort of Gen Con video. If my strategy works well, it'll be a strategy video, along with perhaps a rundown of, you know, how things happened, how the game went, you know, just Gen Con in general. If the strategy doesn't go well, I might still post what it was and how I might do things differently. I mean, we'll see, but I do hope to have a couple more videos coming in the next few weeks, and that's kind of what's on the horizon for me.